All right, folks. Happy Friday. I hope your morning and early afternoon has gone well. Thank you for another great week. Hopefully, we can get out of these snowstorms here soon enough and get away from going to our virtual snow days, so we can get some consistency rolling. But again, thank you for your flexibility with that. Uh, Believe it or not, we continue to get really positive comments from most of our community in regard to how we're even handling the snow days. So kudos to you for absolutely doing what's best for kids in that regard. Listen, we don't have a real lengthy agenda today. I just wanted to make sure that we gave you some updates in regards to what we consider to be some key data. Kevin's going to update you on some thought exchange results, which really are some really feel good for staff that you should be really proud of. I'm going to talk a little bit about spring focus and then give you guys some time to ask any questions that you may have. I start most of these with the data, a data dig and getting it to you. From Pennsylvania numbers, you can see that the incident rate from Pennsylvania continued in a good trend, and also the positivity rate from a state perspective. So positive news in that regard. This data just went live about 20 minutes ago. So we just updated it, but as a state, moving in a much better direction than we were. As you look closer at Cumberland County data, we were actually, last week's data was a little bit better than this week's, but you can see our incident rate now at 142 and our positivity rate at 7.9. You can see last week's positivity rate was 6.4. Remember, one of the real lines in the sand for us is that 10% positivity rate. So being below that allows us to have some discussion. The incident rate still sits in that substantial mode at the number it's at the 142. It's not moderate. We thought we may get to moderate this week. Didn't happen. But there's some data and research out there of how we move forward and maybe garner some more face-to-face time when we're in that substantial or significant area. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Just for counties around us, because it's important for us. We're very much a bedroom community. Many of you have to live outside the 17241 zip code. We have limited housing options. So I always like to share with you the counties around us. And most of those can continue to trend down even from last week. So Adams County, their incident rate's 164, positivity rate at 11%. Franklin County, an incident rate of 138. Positivity
no, I just didn't know if it would echo. Is it echoing at all? Oh.
Dauphin County, an incident rate of 175 and a positivity rate of 11. And York County, 188 and a positivity rate of 11.8. So those positivity rates, again, for the counties around us, almost exclusively sit in that 11 range. So moving in a good direction from a regional basis. Cumberland County is a little bit lower, but I want you to make you aware of that as we move forward. As we continue our data dive, the next slide just looks at us from a zip code perspective. And there you see still the extreme differences in regards to where we're at from a positivity rate and an incident rate as per zip code. Newville really trending in a great way. Carlisle struggling. I'm sure if those of you that live in Carlisle, the high school's closed through Tuesday, I believe. They just closed Moreland. They're seeing more incremental cases and they're showing up in their buildings. It just, quite frankly, it is what it is. And you see that zip code at 22.95%. Newburgh, which we draw from, more like ours at 5.56. And Shippensburg, again, with a little bit more. Certainly, it's a borough. It's not the most urban area in the world. And it's a larger zip code, but at 19% still trending a little bit higher than the Newvilles and the Newburghs of the world. So that's the zip code data. As we move on to our district data, this is the compilation of where we're at since we started the year. And I always try to put this in front of you. 75 suspected, 262 exposed, 64 confirmed. And you can see that count in totality at each building and what it means. And again, pretty reflective of our size of buildings. When you look at the high school, 134, the middle school at 92, our district level meeting here at the DAO at 10. Then you look at Mount Rock and Oak Flat, and of course Newville. Again, I don't want to get into population health discussions here, but we, in our most recent poverty data, Newville is now sitting at mid-50s. There's a little bit more tight quarters. Population health would tell us in regards to insurance and things like that and wellness. It makes some sense. As I said to Kevin many times, there's going to be some great dissertations or master thesis that comes from what we're living this year in education, and a lot of it's going to refer back to poverty and refer back to achievement gaps and the role that families have in that. I think there's probably going to be things that we know as educators that just make sense to us. Those that we struggle with engaging right now may not look a lot different than those that we struggled with engaging prior to the onset of COVID. It's not. Those are interesting discussions, and I don't. Some of it doesn't make us feel very good, and others we can feel. Other points we can feel very proud about. So we continue to make sure that you have this data. When we look into building specific data at this point, you can see we're in great shape, comparatively speaking. At the middle school, we have 2 confirmed cases, one being Staff at Mount Rock, both are Staff. And you can see the quarantines that result from that. So I knock on wood every time I report great data. We consider this to be great data. Again, thank you for your efforts. Kevin and I had some long discussions Wednesday after our town hall, and I have to tell you, it's impossible for us to prove correlation, but I'm convinced, and he is as well, that the mitigation avenues that we've pursued and consistently moved towards have made a huge difference for us. Now, one of those is an A/B schedule that limits numbers face-to-face. No doubt about it, and allows us to do that social distancing. But we haven't taken any shortcuts on masking. Our cleaning protocols and the standalone contract that we have with BioGuard, we feel pretty good about those things. And, when you jump out there with that stuff and you write that check, it's always uneasy. The thermal scanning and how we try to be proactive with that and communicate, it's all having an effect. And kudos to you folks for really helping us pull that off. Again, we feel good about that. We think we've moved in a good direction, and we've tried to make sure that every staff member has known about those from day one and what we're going to be about. So the date-to-date comparison is the next one. You can see the evolution, really. One caveat would be that February 3rd, that 181 in the 7-day case average really is reflective of one day on January 25th when Cumberland County had a spike. Other than that, we've seen the sawtooth go up, as we thought it would, over the holidays, and now start to come down. What has your superintendent? I have a ton of confidence of where we're at and where I hope we go. What has me worried and this, in a level of discomfort is the variant. And there's, we're counting on data from Europe, from South Africa, from Argentina as we look at variant. Obviously, there's cases in the United States of all 3 variants now, and there's more variants to come. That's what happens with a virus when it mutates. My bio teachers can hop on here at any time and verify that's how it rolls. And that's what we're dealing with, all to the point of vaccinations and the importance of vaccinations. And we'll get to that a little bit later on. Let's look real quickly again. So you have all the data. You're going to see again with that low community spread, moderate and substantial. We're clearly, we're in the what I would consider lower substantial now compared to where we were, but we are in that substantial. But we're not greater than that 10% from a positivity. So it gives us some flexibility as we look at our delivery model. I can tell you, and again, we'll get to this in recommendations. I can tell you, kudos to secondary staff for the pivot we made on January 11th when we went to 4 distinct days of education with live stream supporting that. I know that's not easy. It's not our new normal. It's not our new normal. It's what's going to get us through. and allow us to get to the things we need to get to from a curricular perspective. But as your superintendent, I'm very comfortable with that framework taking us as long as we need to go. I'm not near as comfortable with the elementary framework. We really came back to where we were with 2-2 and a virtual, 2 days and a virtual. And we're continuing to have the tough conversations at my level about next steps of what the elementary will look like. So we'll talk about that when I talk about our focus moving forward. So Kevin, why don't you talk about Thought Exchange a little bit? Again, this is some feel good. We were really pleased with the exchange. We had 141 participants. That's solid. For our community, that's very good. And Thought Exchange provides us with kudos, saying, listen, when you do an exchange with the numbers that we have and we get 141 participants, we need to be very happy about that. So Kevin, why don't you walk us through that?
Sure thing, Dr. Fry. Thank you. First, as you may recall, a couple of weeks ago, we engaged in a thought exchange, and the driving question you can read on your screen there, but just to call it to everyone's attention, the question is, what are the most important challenges you're seeing or experiencing with our Tier 2 learning model, and what's working well? So essentially what we wanted to know was, as we're in this Tier 2 learning model from our community, what are we doing well and what can we improve upon? And quite honestly, before I get into the feedback, that takes some professional courage in the midst of what I would say is COVID fatigue for everyone, to be able to ask that question and get the feedback. The benefit of a thought exchange survey is the squeakiest wheel doesn't get the grease, but the one that's valued the most does. So as Dr. Fried mentioned, certainly solid participation across the board, as you can see where the participants, where they're sending their students, a pretty decent balance there. Of course, better engagement at the elementary level than up through the secondary levels, and we see that with a lot of different things that we're doing from a survey perspective, so that's not out of the norm either. When Dr. Fry and I were talking about the update for today, this was something that was on the back burner of whether or not we were going to share it. And as we thought more about it, in education, we're cut a certain way. We're cut to focus on constructive criticism and to shrug off positive feedback. I can tell you the survey is chock with tons of positive feedback that, quite honestly, you deserve to hear because you're the ones that are making it happen. So we're going to share that here briefly so that you can see and hear what it is that was shared with us from a feedback perspective. So this slide, as you may recall from the very structure of Thought Exchange, what is provided to us are a list of top thoughts. And top thoughts are those thoughts from all the participants that were valued the most. So these are the most valued thoughts from that exchange. And I won't read through each one, only just the bolded text that I'll give you a little bit of a highlight from. And you can read the rest, hopefully, from your screen. But excellent communication, that was the top thought. I've seen teachers being creative and trying to implement lessons in a unique way. Despite the challenges of the learning style, the teacher is very well prepared and does an exceptional job. This individual, primarily, it would be a secondary, high school, likes the Monday through Thursday structure and Friday giving their student an opportunity for support from the teachers. The next one, their children, they go to school Mondays and Wednesdays. They're continuing in the 2-hour, or if we're continuing in Tier 2, there was some concern there about the 2-hour delays and early releases. As you know, we tore the Band-Aid off of that so that there's consistency within the Tier 2 schedule moving forward. And the last top thought that was highlighted here, the learning model is good, and I think we all feel this way. We'd rather be together face-to-face and not in this COVID environment. But if it is what it is, the learning model is continuing to do as best as it can possibly be expected to do. So solid feedback there. I promise you this is the last thought exchange slide that I'm going to share with you, and then we're going to turn it back over to Dr. Fry. But I thought this was important as well. I'm going to build a little background before I talk about what's on the screen. Essentially, one of the analytics of Thought Exchange is they give us differences and similarities. So if we split the participants into two sides, side A and side B, side A, as you can read from that column all the way to the left, side A was very focused on just get the kids back to school. Let's stop what we're doing in terms of Tier 2 and move to Tier 3. Side B was more in the school of thought of, you know, we understand it may not be safe to move to Tier 3 right now, so here's what we like about Tier 2. Where the best value of this information comes to light is in the center column. That center column, those are the key thoughts where those from side A and side B agree. So as you look at some of those key thoughts, they fall back to all of you. So I've seen teachers being creative and trying to implement lessons in a unique way. Excellent communication. Second grade parent talked about the ease of locating assignments in a similar spot, in a similar platform to be able to help their students. And the last one talked about some constructive criticism around the time in between classes for their secondary student, the 4 minutes, and providing some more time for some of those breaks there. So good feedback across the board. Ultimately, as I said when I kicked off here with the overview, Dr. Fry and I, when we were talking about this, thought it was important for you to see the feedback in that overwhelmingly it was positive feedback that really needs to be directed and shared to all of you, and that it is absolutely a team lift to be able to get to where we are now. So Dr. Fry.
All right, thanks. So as we get into our spring focus, one invisible item that I just want to provide some data on. Thank you for those staff members, aides, cafeteria workers, bus drivers that last Friday and Saturday, those that qualified in 1A, in the 1 hub group that were able to get vaccinated for Big Spring. We were north of 180. I'm proud of that. This is an interesting process moving forward, and you've heard me very clear. One of the things that gives us some flexibility and allows us to move forward is shots in arms. But it's also important that I note that, that's not for everybody. We have employees that can't do it based on doctor's advice. We have employees that are pregnant or breastfeeding, that they talk to their docs and then make the best decision they can for their family. And we have employees that just based on family discussions and values make those. And folks, that's the joy of living in the country we live. Having said that, from a superintendent perspective, shots in arms is critical. So you're always going to hear me cheerlead vaccination. I don't want anybody on this Zoom to ever feel guilty about being unable to get the vaccine or having a different view of the vaccine. As your school leader, it's important to me because as soon as we safely can get more kids in buildings, that's what we're going to do. So to have 180 plus last Friday and Saturday from that 1A region, and again, I've really been trying to be careful with district comparisons. I think and I've told you, I've worked my tail off for the last month in regard to the vaccine process. And last Friday and Saturday, we were able to bring together Carlisle School District, South Middleton School District, Big Spring School District, Camp Hill School District, Bermudian Springs School District. And as it started with a core district that had a ton of communication. We kept building that based on the numbers we thought we had in 1A. Some of us surveyed, some of us hadn't. But just so you can feel good about the progress we've made. Of our 180 plus, South Middleton had 27 get vaccines, okay? That's a reflection of who we are as a family and what we're about. And I need to, again, express my appreciation for taking advantage of the opportunity. We're going to continue to build it. I'm in really thorough discussions on, as we work through 1A and get to 1B, that we're a site for Western Cumberland County. We've staged and planned to stage at the auditorium how we'll go about that. And I've made you aware, we're in discussions with Graham Medical Center. We're going to be a hub to our community to make sure that we provide the opportunity for vaccines. And as we work through 1A, it helps us with the conversation of what we can do and when we can do it. Is it a false safe approach? Absolutely not. But it does allow us, when we couple 180 plus Bulldog family members, be it whatever their role is, with the data that we provided you early in this Zoom, we know we need to re-energize our conversation of what Tier 3 looks like at the elementary level. And I need to update you on that. So at the elementary level right now, we're in discussions again of when would be the appropriate time for Tier 3. and how we balance that and what it looks like. Obviously, we did the lion's share of that planning in October. I can tell you that planning's done. It remains in effect, but we're also gathering additional data of what would it look like maybe to move to a half-day concept with grades 1 and 2. Don't panic. It's not something but we need to collect that data, what it would look like. I can tell you from the 9 professionals in first grade and the 9 professionals in second grade, those emerging readers, there's some real hesitation with our staff, and there should be, and I get it. So we're going to do our best to look at what we're doing, what our options are, and that option may well be that we just pivot to a tier 3 K through 5. Kindergarten becomes full day again. 1 through 4 or 1 through 5, we move in a direction. I can't give you a date right now. I think it's safe to say we would not absolutely move there prior to March 1. Okay. You've heard me mention March in the past. That's an area we want to get to, but we're going to do our diligence to planning. We'll give you another update in 2 weeks. If I need to get something out in an email prior to that, I'll do that. I've promised an update to our community in 2 weeks in a video. At our town hall on Wednesday with our community, we had 57 folks on. They really were with us. Obviously, there's some anxiousness, and I think the overarching, boy, could we, is can we get elementary kids in? And obviously, we're getting some communication from the state level, from the federal level. They'd love us to do that. For us to pull that off, the one area that we would have to adjust a bit is social distancing, but all our other mitigation factors would remain in effect, and we think be really strong. So we're working through it. We're looking at other models that could maybe succeed in that fact, but it's not going to be a situation where we put up a white flag and just say everybody comes back. It doesn't work that way, and we're not going to back off our mitigation priorities when we move in that direction. We've come too far. I'm not going to be backed into a corner to make a decision that's not in the best interest of our student and staff health. I got to balance that with the mental health and learning side of it, and we'll do that together, and I'll make sure that you're communicated in a way that keeps you in that loop. So from a spring focus perspective, closely monitor local, regional, state data, review the research from Europe specifically in regards to what was initially identified as the second variant, what it's done to schools there. Does it make sense to get some kiddos back now before that variant becomes a stronghold? It maybe does. Then we start to look more at the yo-yo effect. We're looking at all that data. We're looking at that research. We're going to, in the meantime, continue to evolve that tier 2 learning model, and maybe that evolution looks like a half-day K through 2. What I can say is the area that we're probably most settled in with, even though that I know it's challenging, but we're comfortable. And if we need to ride it as long as we do, we will. And that's at the secondary level, 6 through 12, with the 4 days of distinct instruction. I don't see a scenario out there that brings our high school back to full face-to-face right now. It's just not knocking on the door. As it starts to knock on the door, I'll let you know. But I don't see that right now. And as we look at, from the elementary level, as we look at maybe a tier 3 at some point, please know that would be a 4-day tier 3. Okay, we're gonna keep that Friday at all levels as we plan to grow, because the reality of this is our live stream numbers could go up as we pivot to a tier 3 with families that are uncomfortable. I need to make sure I'm providing everybody enough time, not only to plan, but to recharge on Fridays and catch your breath and understand and check in with kids. We're not going to lose that model. We're not going to lose that model through the end of the year as long as I can stay in the position where I have folks that support that from a decision-making process. And that really comes down to our board, and they have been fantastic since March 13th when this started. They've allowed the administration to do their work, to make recommendations, and they move with that. So it's where we're at right now. And lastly, we want to absolutely maintain the open and effective lines of communication with you and our families. If you have a question or a concern, please, please, please don't hesitate in popping one my way or Kevin's way. And I know after our last one, folks we are a family. So, you know, as I'm hammered on vaccines, and I had young moms emailing me, you know, it's been a long time since I've been a young dad. But in my ear, I have a young mother that's a daughter, and I have a son that's a doctor, and you know, they're always in my ear, and so I'm always glad to share that experience. But at the end of the day, you got to get your own, and you got to listen to your docs, you got to listen to your family, and you got to balance what's best for you. And that's what we do as a family, and we support one another in those decisions. There's no shaming here. It's just not who we are as a family. And the joy of family is we can disagree on things and continue to grow. And that's what we're going to do. So please be who you are. And at the end of the day, we're all part of this together. I appreciate your time. We're going to continue to bust our tails and hopefully get vaccines in arms. And at this time, I'll answer any questions anybody would have. Please let us know. Opportunity to have the second dose at the end of week 2. You should get an email from Quality Care. And at that time, they'll schedule what I'm sure will look like a clinic again. But Pennsylvania right now is committed to round 2. From my discussions with the Department of Health, I don't see that changing anytime soon. That would allow them to start 1B sooner. The data I'm getting and the information communication I'm getting in regards to 1B still looks like early April, depending on what happens at the federal level with the push out of the vaccine. So that's the case there. Kevin, help me with chat. I just lost my chat session.
You actually have it up to date right now. I just saw one come in. A possibility on changing the format of tier 2 at the elementary level. I guess that would depend on some of the thoughts. We would need to have a discussion on what that could look like and what the benefit would be, but certainly always open for discussion. And I would say start that with your building principal. And if it's something that would move us in a solid direction for an enhancement, we can definitely have more conversation around modifications to tier 2.
And Mike, thank you for the point on your card. Those of you who were vaccinated, that sticker's on there. Hey, my best advice to you is put that card somewhere safe, even after that second vaccination. For those that travel and whatnot, though we're not hearing it yet, I think we're probably going to be looking at a system to fly and things like that. You're going to see some controls put in place at some point that vaccination card is going to be pretty critical unless you have something different from your doc. So don't lose that card. You know, this is a local pharmacy rolling it out to us they've done a fantastic job, but let's be honest, they have limited capacity. So much like your birth certificate and things like that, keep it in a social security card, keep it in a safe place. Who knows what's coming down the road with that vaccination card? So, and to Kevin's point in regards to tier 2 at the elementary level, you know, when we talk about tweaks to tier 2, there's not a ton of really our planning in regards to tier 3 if we move to tier 3. We incorporated that in. Those are the tweaks to tier 2. The mitigation efforts we have in place at tier 2 have been outstanding. So for us, it comes down to probably looking at social distancing of 3 feet as opposed to 6, and then looking how we define our specials in that regard. And obviously, we're in consistent communication with places like Cumberland Valley, Northern York, South Middleton, that have done full face-to-face at the elementary level, how they got there, class sizes. We have all that. We have all that information. Those districts that have sort of ridden with Big Spring on this, being Mechanicsburg and Carlisle, I can tell you Mechanicsburg's in a similar discussion as we are. Carlisle, not so much, because they continue to just really get beaten up with cases. So they're in a different spot.
There's a question about 1B vaccinations, and if community members fall into 1B, how will they schedule the shot to get it at Big Spring? So Dr. Fry's been involved in this side much more, but any staff members that fall into 1B will coordinate a district vaccination effort. But much like Quality Care, Big Spring Pharmacy utilized the meeting house as a place for vaccinations. There are discussions now about, for our community, could one of our buildings serve as a similar spot to do the same sort of thing? Dr. Fry, anything different or additional for that?
You pretty much summarized, Kevin. We're looking at either probably the high school auditorium or Newville cafetorium would be a spot based on parking and flow. And what we would do, more than likely, again, based on our survey, we would, in collaboration with Quality Care, set aside probably about 250 vaccines, and then open up what would be maybe another 500 to 600 to the community 1Bs. And they would have to go on Quality Care's website, just like you had to go when we opened that link. And you would have first dibs at those 250. As the link opened, we would probably open it. It's going to be one of those quick emails from the superintendent again. Hey, get on a link, get it going. And then in time, it'll open to the community to 1B. That's pretty much how it's been planned to date and what we can expect. How about other questions or concerns? One other point I wanted to make, and really my final point, I don't do this enough. Just know, specifically to professional staff, I know not all of you are comfortable picking up the phone and emailing the superintendent, and I get that. I try to emphasize that you can always do that. But I get, just from an org chart perspective, sometimes that's not the most comfortable thing to do. I need to pass kudos along to your leadership in regards to the BSEA. They've done a fantastic job representing you. And as we work through different protocols and different visions, I promise you they consistently advocate for everybody on this Zoom, regardless of membership. You know, and again, at the end of the day, it's really a unique relationship. And I don't want you to not understand that there's districts around us that don't have the relationship we have. And that's not about the superintendent. That's about you. Okay. So when you get an opportunity, those folks are volunteers and they're not, I promise you, when I make a decision that is not popular, they've been in my ear to let me know it's not going to be popular. There's times we just have to do what we need to do, but they've been in my ear. And that's their role. They're representing you in a way that really reflects everyone here. And it allows us to get to a situation that we do work as a family, and families don't always agree, but at the end of the day, we look out for one another. So kudos to them, and thanks for your efforts. Yeah, I thought 1A went really well from a vaccination perspective. I was there to observe. Quality Care has a great job with this. So once we get post-pandemic, I would love, you know, they're a local business. They're a local business too in Carlisle, Holly, Perry County, and of course, Big Spring Pharmacy, and really run by local folks. So our prescription plan doesn't push us that way because of economics, sadly. But there's the ability to give them business, and I would strongly encourage it because they've been there for us since day one of how we can move this forward. And they're inundated, I promise you, inundated with how do we get vaccines. So anytime you have an opportunity to do business local there, I strongly encourage you to do it. The Gobin family's been incredible. So kudos there as well. Other questions, concerns? Hey, I so appreciate your time on a Friday. I know this isn't always easy. I hope we don't bore you too much with the data. It's important you have it, though. You know where you can get it if you need it. Any questions or concerns, get to me. Have a great weekend. I'm going to spend time with grandbabies in Boalsburg, and I can't smile any bigger than what I do. So kudos. We love you all. Have a great weekend.